1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 of Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! For those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Now let's hop right up into this video. So today I'm going to be talking about the Carmelo Anthony situation. Maybe 3 or 4 days ago, somebody hit me up in the comments and they said, hey, Chill, when you get a chance, look into that Carmelo Anthony situation that's going on in Texas and react to it. And I said, okay, I most definitely will. Normally when somebody suggests that I do a video and I do it, I like to remember their name and shout them out in the comments. Unfortunately, I failed to do so that time, screenshot his name and remember so I can mention him in the comments. So my bad on that. And hopefully the guy who suggested that will see this video. Shout out to you, man. So when I looked into the situation, I was surprised at a couple of things. First and foremost, I was surprised how big the situation had got, and I had not heard about it. The second thing to get my attention, something that not necessarily surprised me, is when you have situations like this arise when whether the victim is white and the defendant is black, or whether the defendant is black and the victim is white. It never ceases to amaze me how instances like this have a tendency to divide the country among racial lines. You know, you can say white people, blacks, African American, whatever term you choose to use. I don't necessarily like to use the term African American. It's a term that makes no sense, right? Because for a person to, in my opinion, consider themselves African American, that's an inclusive term. You are saying that you are an American, right? And to me, if you are an American, all Americans should be treated the same, right? So of course, if everybody that's on the Lakers, they're treated the same, at least in terms, they may not be treated the same in terms of playing time, but they are at least being treated the same in terms of being able to come to the Laker facility, flying on the plane, participating in all the Laker events fairly and stuff like that. And for any other term that identifies as an inclusive term, so in my opinion, man, minorities are not treated with the same respect and the same fairness as other Americans, right? So how can you identify as an American when you are not being treated as an American, right? I think it is fair to say, I think it is extremely fair to say that historically minorities have always gotten the short end of a stick in the vast majority of legal situations, whether that situation is a situation that just stays local, or it's a situation that happens to grab nationwide headlines like this Carmelo Anthony thing, right? It doesn't matter if the defendant is white and the victim is black, or the defendant is black and the victim is white. In the mass majority of those situations, the minority and especially the black person always gets the short end of the stick, right? And so in my opinion, this is why situations like that tend to divide the country among racial lines right now. So just for the sake of this video, let's just use the term, blacks, even though that's a term that I don't like to use either, because black as a color is not a people. But anyway, that's a term that more people than not use, so I'll just use that for the sake of this video, right? So in my opinion, when situations like this arise, the reasons why you have black people so angry and so upset is because, like I just mentioned, historically, black people have got the short end of the stick in these situations. We feel as if we are not given fair justice, whether we are the victim or the defendant. Now, you can name many occasions. You can go back in history. You can go back to the murder of Emmett Till. If you guys are familiar with that, you keep up with history. You can talk about more current situations like Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, just to name a few. Tyisha Miller, the young lady who was killed in Riverside. Eric Garner. In many of those situations, and those are just a few names that I named, in many of those situations, you have had black individuals murdered at the hands of white people, and those white people who murdered those black people were not found guilty by the law. Some of them was not even charged. And for the ones who was charged, eventually they were found not guilty. Right now, a few of those names that I just named, to me, it's extremely strange that for those individuals that I just named, and in many other situations, when the person who is accused of killing those individuals, they're found not guilty. But all those names that I mentioned have one thing in common: their families all received wrongful death payments by the city, by the state, or whoever their families sued, right? So if you're going to have some person who is wrongfully killed and settlements are issued out sometimes in the millions, well, then why isn't anybody convicted for those deaths if they are paying somebody out for a wrongful death? So like I said, for me, it just really makes no sense. And so this is why when you see rare situations like O.J. Simpson being found not guilty, and I believe many blacks believed that O.J. Simpson was guilty. But the reason why they rallied around O.J. Simpson, because you had a lot of blacks who just felt that finally someone gets a fair trial, or finally someone gets into a legal situation where the cards are not stacked against him and he has won. Right now, you rarely have white people who have to deal with that situation, because if we're gonna believe the consensus that's put out there, black people make up maybe about, the last time I checked, I think it was like 12%, or maybe it's about 14%. So black people make about 12 or 14% of the United States, right? So when you have a black person who goes to trial as a defendant, chances are extremely high that he's going to have a white judge. He's going to have a white prosecutor. The majority, if not all of his jury is going to be white. And so the decisions related to incarceration, his freedom, bond, so on and so forth, are being made by white people, right? And so it's extremely rare. For a black person to come out in a situation that's considered favorable in the United States legal system, and I think that for anybody who will deny that is either a reality ducker, or I was gonna say something else, either a reality ducker or a dumb motherfucker, man. Fuck it, you know what I'm saying? We gonna put it out there, man. And so now you have this situation, right? You have this situation where a black person is charged with killing a white person. And now you have these white people, many white Americans are upset. They are angry as can be over this situation, right? And let me show you one reason among many why I believe that white people are so angry in this situation.
For those that are not familiar with that story, you may have heard it a little bit. The story of the altercation under the tent at a high school track meet, where one individual where Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the heart with a knife over being asked to leave the seating area.
And just in about 2 or 3 hours time, right, upon doing research, I saw many videos like that, right? Where you saw that video right there where that guy omitted the truth. He said the reason Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf is because he was asked to leave. There are a lot of lies and falsehoods I noticed being put out there by, ironically or coincidentally, white YouTubers. Now, he said that Carmelo Anthony stabbed Metcalf because he was asked to leave. But later on in that same video, he reads the police report. It reads that at some point, Austin Metcalf put his hands on Carmelo Anthony, right?
I then had Redacted move the walkway under the visitors' bleachers out of the rain to further speak with me. The following is a summary of my contact with Redacted. Redacted advised he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with his team and was near the victim. Austin, the suspect, who was later identified as Carmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Had Anthony grabbed his bag, Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Anthony had any weapons in the bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what Redacted recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help.
And so I see a lot of that going on where they're just not being honest with the facts. You know, they're glossing over certain things, and I just seen way too many YouTube channels to name doing that, along with allegedly or supposedly reputable news stations doing that as well, just not being forthcoming with the truth. Then I noticed another commonality upon watching some of these YouTube channels and reading the comments where why white people were extremely angry is because they're upset that Carmelo Anthony, who is 17 years old, is not being charged as an adult. And it's simple. You know, they're quoting I've seen them quote all these cases from 2012 and all these other cases of individuals who were under the age of 18 being charged as an adult. I seen somebody talking about the Morgan Geyser, the person who had something to do with the Slender Man killing or whatever. And so the reason why, it is simple. The reason why Carmelo Anthony is not being charged as an adult is because he's not an adult. I literally seen one person in the comments say the kid should have his day in court, but he should be charged as an adult. Well, why would you call him a kid if he should be charged as an adult? And like I said, the reason is simple, because he is not an adult. He's 17 years old. Now, what may have went on 15 years ago or 10 years ago is not what's going on today. So basically, there were some studies done that's being recognized by the courts that says that the brain is not fully developed actually until the age of 25, so why they want this 17-year-old kid to be charged as an adult, I was going to say it's beyond me, but actually it's not beyond me. It is due only to anger and a feeling of unfairness. The same feeling of unfairness that many minorities have felt for years and years and years when we or our families or people of our community have to go inside these courts and deal with a majority court system that's white. And I can't say it any other way but that way. That's the truth. And then also I see now that you have a lot of whites who are extremely mad at the judge. I believe her name is Angela Tucker for reducing Carmelo Anthony's bond from $1 million down to, I believe it was $250,000. The things that some of these individuals are saying in the comments is just crazy, man. That in 2025, they're saying stuff like this. And so let me just show you a video I got, like I said, when I was doing my research. And I believe the name of this brother's page was Yelm Society. And he's going to read just some of the things he saw online, people making comments in reference to this judge.
Now, this is the judge right here, Miss Angela Tucker, and you can only imagine the replies. Matter of fact, let's just show you, all right? Can anybody guess why? Blacks always stick together. I bet she hates whitey. As a general rule, black woman judge equals race activist. Every race can have activist judges except whites. If you're upset about this now, just wait until the trial by jury. Of course she did. What do you expect from a black broad? DEI hire. Never trust a black judge to give a fair sentence to a black criminal, especially if it's a woman. Niggas have no respect for the law. Why are they allowed to become judges? Of course, a rigor judge looking out for their own. Carmelo should never see the light of day again. Damn, if this is judging the case, they might as well let him off. You're about to see blatant corruption from the world's greatest judicial system.
And so, yeah, that stuff right there was crazy. A few of them stood out to me. Well, they all stood out, but one of dude said that they shouldn't let and he used a disrespectful term for black people even be judges because they don't respect the law. Some dude just said, oh man, it's over now, and just all this type of stuff, right? But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the case of Get Money Little Ronnie, where unfortunately Get Money Little Ronnie, who was a rapper in Texas, he was shot and killed and gunned down along with his 5-year-old daughter. They both of those dudes who was charged in the killing, I can't quite remember their names, Adonis Robinson and Jacoby Russell or something like that. I may be incorrect on those names, but those dudes who were accused of killing a man and his 5-year-old daughter, targeted the dude, jumped out, snuck up on him, shot and killed him. They were even given a bond. Both of their bonds, I believe, was set at $1 million, right? I don't think that their judge was black, right? I'm not 100%, but I don't think that their judge was black, right? But they was given a bond. So, I think people fail to realize that a bond is not passed out as a punishment to the accused. A bond is passed out just that so something is put up to try to ensure and guarantee that the charged person will return and come to court because he doesn't want to lose the value of whatever was put up. But let's talk about something also that was recently when you had the killing of Robert Brooks, the prisoner who was beat while he was handcuffed, being transported from one prison to another prison in New York. Now, this dude is handcuffed and he is beat and assaulted on videotape by those people who are supposed to care for him while he's incarcerated, and officers of the law who's supposed to, basically treat this dude humanely. This dude is handcuffed and he was subsequently beat to death by 6 prison officers. Those dudes were charged with first-degree murder, mayhem, tampering with evidence, all types of stuff, a host of stuff. And those individuals were also given a bond of $250,000 or a secured bond of $1 million. So where was the uproar? Where was the protest by all those white people then who are now upset, who are now threatening online this black judge? You had many people making many remarks that the only reason Carmelo Anthony was given this bond because he's black and his judge is black, and so if those are the sentiments of those white people who are saying things like that in the comments, how do you think black people feel when we are the victims of crimes and you have white judges giving white defendants who have been accused of murder bonds? So to me, in a way, it's almost hilarious how white people will never bring those things up or suddenly choose to forget them things or act as if those things don't exist. I think that for years and years and years, black people has felt that, in order to even get a guilty verdict upon a white person, we would have to pretty much have an open and shut case, something like in the term of the white supremacist Dylan Roof, when he walked into that church, and while you had people in there, praying, worshiping their creator, their higher power or whatever, he walked in there and he gunned 9 of those people down, right? I think that you have a lot of black people who feel that if the situation is not open and shut, like that situation, the court is going to find a way to either find the white person not guilty or be extremely lenient in sentencing. And even in that situation, the police who arrested that dude stopped and got him a hamburger, fries, and a Coke before they took him to jail. Now hold on, we not just to act like I just didn't say that, man. Them motherfuckers stopped and took that motherfucker to a restaurant, to a fast food restaurant, to get him a burger, fries, and a Coke because he was hungry. Can you imagine a black dude walking into a church, killing 9 people up in the church? Now come on, let's keep it real. The black dude probably wouldn't even be arrested. He would probably be gunned down wherever the police found him on the spot, right? But let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, you did have a black dude walk into a church, gun down 9 white people, get arrested. Do you believe that the officers would stop and get this dude a hamburger, fries, and a Coke Do you think that they would be concerned with how this dude felt, if he was hungry or not, if the officers was white? Hell no. And if the officers was black and sympathetic to his cause, they definitely wouldn't do it, because they know that if they do it, they would lose their jobs the next day. So, I mean, you know, to me, it's like, it's just crazy how white people sometimes in the United States will forget a whole lot of this stuff that's going on, and they don't care until something happens to somebody that's white, right? One thing that I have always loved to say, that you never had, I don't know if you guys remember, when I was growing up, they used to have a coalition and a group that was called MAD, and it was an acronym for Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And so basically what that group was, it was a lot of women whose son had been killed by individuals driving drunk. And I used to love to say, no mother joined MAD or even cared about MAD until her son was killed by a drunk driver. And this is the same, and I say that to say that this is the same situation here. You know, white people do not become upset and in an uproar until something is done to a white person by a black person. But like I said, historically, black people have often got the short end of the stick in a situation that involves a white person harming a black person. Anyway, with all that said, let's get to the matter at hand. So you have Carmelo Anthony, who at a track meet goes and sits under a tent, right? And so now he's approached by Austin Metcalf and his twin brother, basically telling him, hey, that man, you can't sit here. Now, let's keep it 100, right? Chances are extremely high that when Austin Metcalf approached Carmelo Anthony with his brother, not only with his brother, but with his twin brother, he definitely felt emboldened and powerful, right? So he asked Carmelo Anthony to not sit up under the tent, right? So for whatever reason, Carmelo Anthony refuses to move. I guess he put his hand on him or something, or did something to the point that made Carmelo Anthony put his hand in his bag and say, punch me and you're going to find out what happens, or something along those lines. Now, I also seen that you had a lot of white people in comments of people who was doing videos on this story, basically saying that when Carmelo Anthony said, hey man, punch me and see what happened, he was provoking him, that he provoked Austin Metcalf. Now, in my opinion, that was nothing close to a provoking. It was a warning. If you put your hands on me, you're going to find out what happens, right? So then, as the story goes, Austin Metcalf either proceeds to push Carmelo or he grabs him by the backpack or whatever. Then Carmelo retrieves the knife, pulls the knife out of his backpack and stabs Austin Metcalf in the chest, right? Now, basically, Austin felt entitled in a situation where he shouldn't have. So when Austin noticed Carmelo sitting under the tent, that was allegedly or supposedly for only members of that track team. So then what Austin should have done is he should have never even approached Carmelo. What also was a little bit odd to me is you had so many people in the comments who obviously were white trying to blame Carmelo for provoking Austin into putting his hands on him. It was extremely odd to me that I didn't see not one person out of all the different YouTube channels that I went to who spoke on this matter suggest, comment, say, or state anything along the lines of Austin should have then went and got an adult, a supervisor, a teacher, someone who had the authority to ask Carmelo to remove himself from the area in which that he was sitting on if it wasn't designated for random people. But no, for whatever reason, I guess he feels powerful, he feels tough, so he wants to take it upon himself to physically put his hands on Carmelo. Then Carmelo pulled the knife out, stabbed him. Austin ended up passing away. All that honestly is neither here nor there in the eyes of the law. So basically, in my opinion, what this case is going to come down to is the laws regarding self-defense out there in Texas. So I looked up some stuff, and I think it was Texas Penal Code 9.32, right? And so basically, I'm going to put it up on the screen for you guys so you can read it yourself, right? And I'm going to read what I believe applies to the situation in this case, right? So basically, what it says is a person is justified in using deadly force against another if the actor would be justified in using force against the other under section 9.31. And that section is When and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the deadly force is immediately necessary. And paragraph 2 says, when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the deadly force is immediately necessary. So in my opinion, that's going to be key right there, right? So in the eyes of the law, stabbing someone just because they pushed you is not the appropriate amount of force, right? So if more evidence or more, because I'm hearing people talk about it's a certain type of video or something they may have, but if things like that don't come into play, I definitely believe that KARMELO is going to be fighting an uphill battle, because the law is pretty simplistic, right? And it's not going to allow people to feel they have the right to pull out a weapon, whether that be a knife or a gun, and take the life of another individual simply because that person pushed you. So in other words, you have to use you can defend yourself with the appropriate amount of force that is being used against you. So basically, Carmelo Anthony could have pushed that dude back. He could have possibly even hit the dude with his fist, but take his life. That's going to be a hard self-defense case for that guy to prove, you know. And I definitely believe that you may have some people who think or may want to think that due to the fact that I am of the same race as Carmelo Anthony, I'm going to come with a wild legal theory or whatever, right? And I definitely support the brother, right? So I could get up here, make a video, and due to the fact that I'm trying to support Carmelo Anthony, give you guys a whole bunch of hogwash or mumbo jumbo. But to be honest, if I did that, it's still not going to change the fact of the matter and the reality of what the situation is from a legal aspect, right? So, you know, you have a lot of white people in their feelings because this individual was allowed to have his bond lowered. He was allowed to be released, so on and so forth. Man, let's keep in mind that the dude was 17 years old. He's never had any prior criminal history before. He was a straight A student. Let me say that again. He was a straight A student. He was the captain of the track and football team. He's held a job for 2 years. Even though this doesn't have anything to do with him being released or his bond being lowered by the judge. But I also seen maybe a couple of years ago, he jumped in a swimming pool and saved a 6-year-old for drowning. So it just seems to me as if, you know, he's a good kid who unfortunately may have just made a bad choice, you know. But we're going to let all this situation play out. Anyway, man, listen, I appreciate you guys tapping into the video. I think I rarely or even never ask you guys to share and like a video, man. But please like and share this video right here. Actually, this is a video, and videos like this are things that I really want to do on my other channel, No Chill for Real. That's NOCHILLFO''REAL. Lately, I've been a bit busy, but I'm going to definitely start dropping more videos on that channel. I know a lot of times in one of my videos, if I happen to cuss, a lot of people will say, well, damn, man, you know, we never heard Chill cuss. Or maybe sometimes even, hey, Chill, man, you should curse more. And if you guys happen to go back and scroll and binge watch some of my older videos, I used to do a lot of cussing. But then I noticed when you don't cuss, you get paid more. So on my channel, No Chill for Real, we're going to let it all hang out, man. I'm cussing, I'm clowning. We not being politically correct, none of that old type of stuff. So if your feelings going to get hurt, if you're easy to lose your lunch or possibly get your panties in a bunch, do not come to my other channel, because I'm going to be on there clowning. I'm going to have a ball, man. So anyway, I'm going to leave a link in the description. And even if you don't plan to watch, if you have not yet, go and subscribe to my other channel. I need 1,000 subscribers to get monetized. I'm going to be on there. Like I said, we going to clown. we going to have fun. It's going to be up, man. You already know who it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.